All righty. So like I said, I'll introduce the podcast a little bit. I'll introduce you, and then we'll get right into it. All righty. Hi, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Every Coach Needs a Coach, a podcast for coaches of all sports and all age groups to learn from coaches and people they may otherwise never have the chance to meet. Today, I'm joined by Coach Rick Brownell of Arcadia Women's Soccer. He's been there for 18 seasons and has made tremendous history and strides within its program, including a 2017 conference victory where they upended, I'm gonna say it, legendary Messiah University, and ended their 11-year run, I think it was, in their conference tournament. And Coach, he's a wonderful guy and clearly has a wealth of knowledge to share with us. So thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you, Kelly. And boy, what a great introduction. But I love that game. You can talk about that game whenever you want and for as long as you want. That's okay with me.
We'll get into it because I know a little bit about Messiah, and as soon as I read that, I said, oh my gosh, how'd you do it? So I'm sure we'll get into that. But Coach, I always start with this question, and it's simple but profound. Why do you coach?
Yeah, it's a great question, and probably many layers to it for me. I mean, first off, I love coaching. Coaching to me is a career that you can measure yourself every day. It's not for everybody. It's clearly not for everybody. But I sort of had an unfortunate incident where my father passed, and when I was in college, I had to run the family business for a couple of years, and it's not what I wanted to do, but I did what I needed to do. But it taught me what I really don't want to do in life, and that's grind out every day and do the things. And he was my inspiration. He was a wonderful man, but he also loved seeing me play sports and accomplish sports. And so it was our passion together. He even sponsored teams and things like that along the way. So it just kind of fit to me to when I was in my, mid to late 20s and 30s to say, I'm starting late, but coaching is who I am. And it became who I am very, very quickly, from the childhood lessons that we learn in the backyard. Back when I grew up, that's what we did. We played every single day. We competed every single day.
Yeah.
We loved competition. You hear every once in a while people being afraid of competition, and kids are too young to compete and to win and to lose. And there's a way to win. There's a way to lose, and losing is a valuable lesson in life. And if it's handled the right way, and if for instance, if it's not such a life or death scenario when you lose, you learn a little bit of resiliency, so, and some other reasons as well. But yeah. I just coaching has just been a passion of mine, whether it's mentoring. I don't want to say young people, because the college age, they're grown-ups. They really more or less just need to make sure their compass is heading in the right direction. They want to have somebody that's consistent. Sometimes I have to be dynamic and shift my personality to kind of help out where they are at that particular moment, which I love. So the fact that it's not redundant every day, and that I can have live conversations that not so much alter lives, but alter the pathways to get them back on track, and then get out of their way and let them succeed, and then finally, probably leave a legacy. I think it's just another one of a rare type of career where you can leave a legacy behind you. Even if you've only coached for a year or two, it's not about the wins and losses or the championships or even the monster wins that you've had or crashing losses. It's about the memories that you provide that last forever.
Yeah.
I have a young lady that, unfortunately I had to let her go from my team when she was 13. It was a highly competitive program. She just contacted me last week for some help with one of her psych friends needing some people to fill out some surveys and things but still have a connection from when they were 13. Yeah. So, yeah. So I'm sure there's longer answers here, but for me, there's a little bit of layers of why I coach.
Yeah. I mean, you could see it in your face and hear it in your voice. Like you love it. Right. And you said late to the game, which, mid-20s is usually not late to anything. So we're all still figuring everything out. But I'm glad.
Well, if you subtract what my age is now from when I started to coach at Arcadia, you'll see, I started pretty late. Yeah. It took quite a long time to become a college coach. Let's just put it that way. A lot of 2 and 3 jobs and, grinding it out. So it's all good.
Tell me about that, right? That journey that you went through.
Yeah, I went through probably as unusual a journey as you can, because I sort of lost my 20s to help out with what my family situation was. I started, I was in the sports fitness world, and I was doing a lot of training, and I was working with teams anyway.
Mhm.
I started just doing some side coaching. And honestly, back then, I felt weird about taking money to be a coach. It just was, I'm working with kids. I just felt very strange. And then I've been very lucky to have it evolve, seen the soccer revolution evolve, the women's athletic revolution,
Yeah.
just been through all of it. I've seen the beginning of it, and then middle of it and end of it. So as I was going through that, it's literally just every year, what's the next step? What's the next step? I'm coaching 2 or 3 teams, training in the morning. I've got kids at home, you know, high fiving mom, she goes off to her job, back and forth, wanting to coach my own kids. It was just a juggle fest. And the one constant in all of it is just keep moving forward. Just keep moving forward. It's just the one thing that I think I've been very fortunate to have, that drive, that if I want to coach, I can't go backwards. I can have a bad year, I can have a bad this or that, but everything was about moving forward. For instance, I never became an assistant coach along the way. I actually, once I was ready for my first job, I tried to apply for a few high school jobs to be the coach. I got hired 4 times and got let go the next day, all 4 times, because there were teachers that wanted the job and were in the system, right? So when that was totally fine, and I was fine with all that. I ended up in the community college at a program that I wasn't aware, because they used to have a good reputation. They had flopped the year before and only had 4 players when I showed up on the team. And the AD said to me, if you don't finish every minute of every game, you're not getting paid this year. So I went through an 0-19 season and barely had 8 or 9 players through the entire season, lost 11-0 and 12-0, and I won the championship 2 years later.
Yeah.
That was one of the hardest years of my life. But when you're desperately looking to succeed, I wasn't desperate to win. I was desperate to survive. I had family and things like that. So just some of the things that built my sort of strength and resolve. I remember beating a team that was fully scholarshiped, and we had kids that were barely walking on the field 2 years later, and they were 5 goals better, and we beat them 4-1 because my players just listened to me. And I think it was at that moment I knew I could coach. But I remember just having that whole, almost an emotional breakdown in the pouring rain, down a goal and coming back and scoring 4, because my players did everything I asked. And I just sat there with my jaw dropped to say, wow, this stuff works,
My
so
goodness.
yeah. So that was, then building off of that again, was how I sort of transitioned into, a small college program. And in that program has been fortunate as a department to grow so much in the last 18 years. So,
Wow. So it was from that community college then to Arcadia. And that's where
I was hired pretty much as, again, never assisting, and then just going right into as a part-time head coach. And I remember others in the department saying, why are you putting so much time in here? You're paid so little, why are you doing this? And my response was, well, they're never going to hire me if I'm not winning, and if I'm not building this program right.
Yeah.
I was putting 30, 40 hours a week and getting paid for less than 5. So, but we won a championship in 3 years there as well. And we were the underdogs. And then, funny how they say, in Division III, winning doesn't matter, okay. But as soon as we won the championship, I got a job about a month later, and they said, hey, we want you full time. Okay. All right. Thanks.
It's funny you say that. I always notice that too, because I played Division III basketball, and we won our conference. And then the next year they like redid the gym, right? I was like, huh, that's interesting.
Exactly.
Exactly. You get donations, you get some more.
Yes.
And
well, I'm going to say that it's not so much winning matters, but winning the right way matters. Yes. And if everybody's having a really great experience, we can get into this further, but winning for the sake of winning is not a sustainable model. It just isn't. Winning is a byproduct of everything else you're doing. We struggled for those 3 years that I was building that program, and just didn't get any breaks, no breaks. And we even lost 4-0 to the team that we ended up beating in the championship during the year. And I remember, a colleague that was fairly critical with his arms folded, watching above the hill at us losing 4-0, shaking his head, walking away. and again, having that, can I coach this game mentality? Like, can I really do it? And there's a championship in my pocket less than 3 weeks later. And it just, life's funny. So, you just stay the course, and, because coaching is, again, you're measured with your losses. We all have that. We all, can I do this? Is there something wrong? Why can't, it's not about winning all the time, but you're certainly challenged at every level to look within to make sure you're doing everything that you possibly can. That's for sure.
Yeah. I like what you said there, right? Winning is a byproduct of doing other things the right way.
Yeah, I think that's probably the single strongest message you can have as a coach that you have for more than a year. I mean, whether you're a college coach or a high school coach or a club coach, I've done a lot of club coaching at the very highest level. And I've done, pee-wee soccer, so everything in between. But when you're trying to develop a program over a year or two, you've really got to get into the process. Otherwise, like, again, winning is just not a sustainable model to push like that. So.
Yeah. Can you tell me one or two parts of your process that, like, if you were to start over again, this is the part of the foundation you would build it on?
Well, so much is just about communication, honestly. For instance, I'm one of the few club coaches working with teenagers that actually talk to parents. Now, parents don't have access to call me after games and, when they're upset about something like that.
Boundaries.
But honestly, I'm a parent, and I always use the term that if I'm on the other side of the field and I see a coach 80 yards away pointing at my kid and she's upset, or my son and he's crying, is he encouraging or is he yelling? So I can imagine what that looks like to parents, and yet there could be a really strong lesson that could be coming to that child, and they could be learning a tough lesson, but you're actually reinforcing something. So why not tell them, like, these are the directions we're heading in. Then be able to say, I can't go down that pathway if they start to get, well, why is there not more playing time and things like that? Don't get me wrong. Like I said, it's not open access, but I think communicating with families, with players, even at the college level, I'm not afraid to speak to parents every once in a while. It's not a good model on a regular basis, but if it helps if there's a family involved with it, it just seems to help the development. So
Yeah.
Segued off your question a little bit.
Oh, that's a great pillar on wit, right? That's part of the process. Because I think, and tell me if I'm putting words in your mouth, right? But communication builds trust.
There's no question of it. And again, so much of the communication is that I've had some bitter things happen as a club coach with parents. It's been a wrecking ball, and it makes you want to say, I'm never going to talk to another person not on the side.
Dealing with it. Yeah.
And I get it. And many coaches do that. And I'm breaking all the rules saying this here. But for me, there are people I kind of have to shut out because they're over the top, involved. But for the most part, I think nowadays parents are so involved. There's so much investment into, it's not like when I was a kid in the neighborhood, we played, I told you, every day. I played 5 different sports. We used to travel the tennis courts and play street hockey until the tennis people showed up, like
referees and no coaches there, and you figure it out.
Sure. But nowadays you have to specialize. And at 8 years old, people are putting a fortune into training for their 8-year-old. And it's rough. So balancing, I think, that in understanding where people are coming from, that doesn't validate bad behavior or over the top parenting, but it does bridge the gap and almost educate them on how to communicate and what questions are appropriate to ask, so they can explain to the daughter or son on the way home, because they're going to anyway. So for me, they're either going to browbeat.
That's true.
Say, why didn't you do this? Why didn't you do that? Why didn't you say that to your coach? Yeah. Or you can say, listen, I had a really good conversation with your daughter, and this is what we worked out, and this is the direction we're heading in. And of course, the parents will say, I say that all the time. Mm-hmm. I guess my point is, it all starts with communication. And once trust is established, I actually communicate less and less as I sort of educate people, rather than, to me, that's the issue. If you go more and more, it becomes a dependency thing. The idea is to, so if I had to do one thing over as starting as a club coach or starting as a coach of a program, the first thing I would be like, sort of, number one, to trust myself a little bit more, trust my instincts.
Yeah.
Number two, work on communicating and not be afraid to connect, but work to establish some independence of trust. And then what happens is parents talk to you less and they relax a little more. And then your meetings at the end become more effective and things like that. So I've had some pretty good success.
No, it's really helpful. And I like what you said there, like, don't be afraid to establish that and trust your gut, trust your instincts on it. Because it can save a lot of heartache and headache later if early on you're open and honest and get everybody on the same page.
Yeah. And one of the hardest things to learn how to communicate is the word no. And then you have a really intense parent, it makes you never want to do that again. But for me, I'm hurting other people by not at least acknowledging that about me, that this is about me and I don't want to be insulted and I don't want to be attacked like that. Yeah, I've been attacked completely inappropriately, and it's been just stopping it early and learning how to stop with a pretty strong voice without raising it, and then moving forward and things like that. But I just think so much of coaching nowadays, you can't deny that that's around. There's just because at 6 and 8 and 10, there's so much, even financial, there's so much family planning around.
Right. But no vacation this year, right? Or only going to Disney because there's a showcase there.
Well, my favorite story about coach, honestly, I used to help with a lot of the coaches at my club. I was sort of the bad cop. I would go in there and tell coaches, okay, you got to play all the kids and things like that at age 8 and 9, things like that. So
that makes you the bad guy. Oh my God.
Well, no, what I'm saying is my favorite was when I had to talk to a U8 under 8 boys B coach. And he turned to me and he said, "You have no idea the pressure I'm under." At U8 boys B. And I think at that point, I tried not to laugh in his face, but it is, it's a lot of stress out there.
Well, you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. And I see it. My nephew is 9 and he plays hockey all the time. And like, I can ask him and he knows this, right? I'll say, go run up the hill. And he's huffing and he can skate for hours, run up the hill. And it's a different story, but it's just the nature of the beast right now. And they're worried about falling behind and they do love it, right? They're around their friends and it's a good place to be, but everything, for me, at least, everything needs to be, there needs to be better balance about it.
Yeah, no, most definitely. I also communicate a lot with my college players. I think that's really made a difference. I mean, as a club coach, I can't tell you how many times my club kids in pretty high level programs around the country, by the time they're sophomore, junior, will be emailing and calling me and saying, I never hear anything. They told me everything's fine. I used to start. Now I don't play. They're playing so many, they're playing back and I hear nothing. They're saying everything's fine. And I'm like, I don't know how to answer that, because I try to say, there's a relationship I have. And I just think that especially college players, they know what they need to work on, and give them something to work on. It's up to them. If they want to climb Mount Everest and keep working and working and working, then they'll work their way into a more playing time. So I have no problems telling them why they're struggling. And, if they haven't been able to put the time in, or if they have, maybe they're doing the wrong thing. So to me, just that communication helps on all levels in some way, instead of just avoiding it and say, hey, I'm coach, I'm the authority, and again, at some programs, I get it, that needs to happen. Let's just say at my level or whatever level that I'm coaching, and it's been at a lot of different levels, club wise and, college, it doesn't exist for me.
Yeah. Can you speak a little more to that of either like frequency of communication or do you do weekly meetings with your kids? How do you do that?
Yeah, no, I'm glad you said that. I'm just somebody used the term years ago, and I've established that I don't know if it's the right term, but it's dynamic leadership. And I lead with what I have, and I will alter according to who I have. I have some kids in my office every day joking around, kicking the door in, screaming, "What's up, coach?" just to make me jump, and then joke around and have a little bit of fun. I have other kids I don't see for 3 weeks. And in our environment, that's very acceptable. And I make it acceptable. It's a very high success environment. It's very multitasking. They're busy. They're accomplishing a lot. I mean, we're the #1 study abroad program in the country. Our kids are traveling the world, big sciences. They're accomplishing a lot. So I create an environment that it has full access. They can get me whenever they want to. And they're college kids. They're going to call me at midnight on a Monday and tell me, I'm going to fail 3 tests this week and I don't know what I'm going to do. But yeah, right. So I guess meeting their needs again, as freshmen, I think it starts to become more a pretty needy at first because there's a lot of fears and anxieties. But by the time they're sophomores and juniors, my isms, I call coach isms. One of mine is like, okay, they've seen the puppet show. They know where all the strings are. They know that I'm going to be there. Yeah. They might relax a little bit more. They might say, okay, coach, I got this. Seeing that confidence build over 4 years to me is what it's all about. And then when they need something, so honest, I don't even have, it is like sacrilege to say this, I don't have academic meetings. They're watching each other. I'm getting 6-week evaluations. I'm doing other things, monitor. I'm on top of a lot. I don't let the inmates run the asylum at all, but trying to create a world for their success. And if I don't have kids that are going to try to be successful there, then I bring in the wrong kids. And I work really hard to make sure I'm bringing in people that care to succeed. I know that sounds simplistic, but honestly, there's one thing I don't think I've ever learned, and I've never seen anybody else. I don't know if you can ever coach apathy. People that just don't have a passion to learn, that don't want to get better. I'm not even sure why they're playing other than maybe for social reasons. That's fine. I think I've coached, probably 24 teams in my life, and I've only had 2 teams, oddly, from the same neighborhood area, and that I couldn't coach, and I tried it, and they just didn't care about playing. They were just, even a 12-year-old kid, hey, you want to go in? Nah, I'm all right. Like, you don't want to go in the game? So that's me. For me, I'm looking for people that want to improve, that want to get better, and that just makes life so much easier to coach.
Oh, sure. Well, and you have to, provide the right environment for that.
For personally, I have to go far and wide to make sure I have a full team of that too. It's not easy. It's not like you can go down the street and pick out, I don't pick players. I want the environment to sort of pick them out, and then the relationships build from there. But, I would rather, and I bring in West Coast kids. I have a kid from Honolulu on our team. Like, I'll go anywhere to find the right kids or the right environment that they can succeed in. To me, that's probably been one of the biggest reasons we've been successful. Is I've been fortunate enough to be able to reach out a little further and dig a little deeper to find the right people in. And that just exponentially makes my life easier as a coach. And then I get to do what I love to do and see change, growth, success. And a lot of it is me just getting out of their way and making sure they have what they need to succeed.
Yeah. Well, I feel like you can start at such a higher place if you have the right type of person there, right? And you don't have to coach all those other things. You don't have to coach their attitude. You don't have to coach their effort. That's all there, right? Let's get out of your way. Let's let you build each other up. And I like to think of it, right? It's not our job to force the seeds to grow. It's our job to give them the right soil and sunlight and water, and give them an environment that they can succeed in.
Yeah, that's a really good way of putting it. But I have to be honest, I do think the compass goes in the wrong direction every once in a while. And, teams can inherently, if you just let them go, they're going to possibly find ways, because here's what I truly believe. Competition's hard. Doing it right, working it, it's just inherently there's fear involved with it, because you're putting so much out to succeed that it's easy to get distracted and pulled away, whether it's drama or some kind of a different theme. Sometimes it's even maybe me. I remember early on, some of the players would oh, listen, if you cry in coach's office, you get more playing time, So if you let it go for a while, then it builds on itself. And then we have our little team chat, and I go, and we adjust everything. So it just, you're right. But, while you're, it's the garden where the tomatoes, where you have to, put the wire in there a little bit, the right direction, you can't just, it's just going to grow off the table.
You have weeds. That's right.
Yeah.
Oh, I like that. I like
we're
that.
Playing with metaphors here too much.
Oh, I love it. That's how I think too. No, that's great. That's a really good way to put it. Tell me about what you feel like. You're a humble guy, so you're going to ask me to phrase this differently, but I'm going to ask you outright. Right? Is there anything you feel like you do better than anybody else in the world of let's call it girls soccer coaching?
Wow, that is Yeah, that's tough. I don't know if it's, again, I'm just going to say, I don't know if it's better. I will say that um, I just try really, really hard to think a little bit progressively about what the players need, and in that I need my winning, and anything that I've accomplished is literally a team environment, in that if they don't want it as bad as I do, it's never going to get there.
Yeah.
So finding those leaders, finding situations and coaching points, or just the right kind of lessons at the right time, can completely shift a team, and sustainably. And then after, years of ups and downs and growth, and having those, I think after a while, the team starts to do it on their own. They start to teach the next level, but they wouldn't if I was standing in front, dragging them through every season, saying, meet my needs, meet my expectations. It's a lot harder that way. It takes a lot longer. But ultimately, that's kind of been my passion, to not drag them through. It's exhausting to drag them through. They don't want to hear my voice after a while. But I think what I've done pretty well is notice the little things that their needs are, rather than maybe what I'm looking for. But if they're doing, for instance, I remember we had a pretty big goal scorer come to us. I was given very strong advice from two people. One is the high school coach, and a parent that was actually an assistant coach for my club team. Both of them said, you don't want this kid. She's all about herself. The team doesn't like her. She's selfish. And that's usually a sign to run away, because I'm a culture guy.
Yeah, sure.
But I kept watching her, and what I noticed was that she just kept working hard. But when she got off the field, she was just very aloof, head up, and not really overly social. But I remember recruiting her, and I finally just felt confident enough to say, I'm hearing some things about, you not being such a great team player. And she goes, that's interesting. I mean, I think I work pretty hard for my team. I like my team. And I'm like, okay. I said, so what are your thoughts here? And she's like, no, I'm fine. I actually really want this. Like, a long story short, she scored 50 goals on my team. I remember the sports information director asked her, like, how did you score 50 goals? She said, well, I'll tell you what my coach said, 50 goals from me are 50 great passes from my teammates.
Yeah.
So after many years, the point is like, there was nothing wrong with her. She had a different mentality, and she liked to score goals. So we just put it in a way that it was a team, that the whole team scores, the whole team defends. When you score, you're scoring for your teammates.
Yep.
Your goalkeeper, shares in your goals, as well as you as a striker would share in our, and just that mentality over time just continued to kind of go with it. So I'm not sure if that makes me the best at this or the best at that. I really try to notice the little things to even get players, because I really do think you have to coach the whole team. You can't just coach your top players, or you'll have a separation of culture.
Yeah.
And I try not to bring in players that I don't think can succeed. I think that's not fair to them.
Yeah.
So I think noticing even the players that are struggling to get on the field, and every little thing they do to help their team. I have an unfortunate situation now. I have a senior that's halfway through her senior. She's graduating. She's frankly top level actuary. She's done fabulous things, involved in many clubs, but she's had hip surgery and so challenged herself in so many. She's barely had playing time as a soccer player. But there's not a player on our team that doesn't absolutely love her and how hard she's worked and what she's created at Arcadia, with no playing time, because as hard as she worked at it, she kept getting slower and slower. And it turns out she had a labor problem in her hip. So noticing the value of that player to the team, and as she graduates, to me, like, that's as important as your top goal scorer.
Sure. Yeah. It's interesting to hear stories like that, and especially with that player, because when you have an injury, you have to learn a different way to lead. And it sounds like she stepped right into that.
Yes, and but I mean, if being a good coach means that I get to recognize what other people are good at, I guess I'm pretty good at that.
Yeah.
I can step
Well,
back, kind of say, hey, listen, if this is a two-dimensional player, if they just had this, and a lot of them have had bad, cultures and bad environments, and we're going to take those kids and give them what they need and get out of their way. And if they're having success at that, then, it's hard. That's why it's hard for me to take credit, because they're really doing all the work. I'll take credit for helping with the environment.
well, right. That's it.
Yeah.
And you gave a really good example there. And I feel like you have to, it goes back to what you started with about communicating. And you need to have that type of relationship where you do notice those little things. Right? If you don't know anything about your kids, they show up to practice, they leave. You don't know. I like to think of it, and I have to remind myself of this constantly. You don't know if they had a hard math test that day. You don't
Right.
you don't know if Aunt Sue is in the hospital. You don't know any of that. And so especially when I first started, everything was, do it my way, do it this way. And then you realize you just got to have a conversation about it.
You do. And then constantly telling the players that I know you don't want to complain. I'm not asking you to complain, but if you've had a hard day or something's happened in your world, it's okay to tell me. Say, coach, I'm just having a rough day, especially if I'm kind of going hard on something and they're struggling. I've had that where I keep pushing and pushing and pushing, and there's a breakdown. 20 minutes later, when her friend is coming over, she's like, oh, well, she had this massive thing happen today. Wow. We've all had that as coaches.
Yeah. You tell me about that.
I'm very fortunate to really stay on the proactive side and keep that communication line open. And I get less and less of that. But ultimately, athletes are just they're grinders. They don't want to complain. But what I'm trying to tell them is part of the responsibility and accountability of succeeding and performing is knowing when you can't. Yep. and appreciating that.
Yeah.
It's the simple, the mentality in the story is just, why would I overtrain you for a game? And it's very similar. So, and recognizing how hard you can push a team, to move forward. Because I do think there's a limit, you know exactly how far, and then when to back off, and they create a trust where they want to push harder.
Yeah.
Because they trust you. And they know they can push out. If you're pushing really hard and they think you're just going to keep pushing and pushing, they'll pull back a little bit.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. No, I love it. So tell me this, right? Does a particular game or practice or time as in your career as a coach stand out to you as a high or a low or a growing point? And what did you learn from it?
Well, I think I mentioned before, I've had some early games that have, sort of transformed me. But I would say that probably one of the more unique things that happened to transform my Arcadia team was a really strong group of freshmen that had really elevated our program with their work ethic. It was, we had just gotten a strength and conditioning coach, and a lot of the upperclassmen were like, it's D3, we're not doing it, in subtle ways. They weren't telling me no, but they were not doing it.
Yep.
And the freshmen came through, and, and I talked to them. I'm like, just lead by example. They will follow when you bypass them and run past them at 100 miles an hour.
Yep.
They go, yeah, but we don't want to hurt anybody. We're not mad at them. I said, that's the best part of being a leader. Just go, support your seniors, support what's going on, but just run past them. Trust me. And it worked. But then that group, when they became, I'll never forget, they became sophomores. They were sort of the real impact group. They had a meltdown, and it was all in the same game. It was against a top competitor. It wasn't Messiah at the very top, but it was a very top competitor. We lost 3-0, and we should have probably won the game, but it's a very tough conference game.
Yeah.
Big factors that I noticed is that all three of them, 3 out of the 4, I should say, 3 out of the 4 players played with fear. And this is a huge factor where, and I say this to my teams all the time as a learning environment, don't play not to lose. You have to play to win. And they clearly played not to lose and backed off and backed off and backed off. I was furious. They didn't get it. They thought there was nothing wrong. And this is a very serious loss. We got back to campus. I brought the 4 of them in and I sat them down. And I probably said a pretty harsh thing. And I said, I'm shocked that you don't have heart because I didn't see heart today. And they were viciously angry.
Yeah.
We went at it. And I go, okay, listen, if you're going to tell me you have heart, then don't you ever back down from a challenge again. And I will do nothing but support you for the rest of the time you were here. Can we agree on that? And we agreed, and the program took off. I just sat back and watched them. They just ran forward. It was a lesson they needed to learn. It wasn't a good lesson coming from me because right now, of course, it's that time where you have to step in at the right time and say the right things and take the consequences, which is they're going to be a little anti-trusting with me for a while. And knowing when to do it and how to do it, I don't know if I have all the answers. I know that sparked my team to a whole new leadership. By the time they left, they were leading and teaching those behind them how to lead.
Yeah.
The program has been growing at a pretty strong leap and bound ever since. And that was 8 years ago.
Wow. That's incredible. And
well, it's risky. I mean, but that's me. I'm kind of like, I think if you're not willing to risk failure and then apologize for the mistakes, I've made mistakes. I'm willing to apologize. And I've apologized to my team, if nothing massive, but like, if I felt like if I went too far or early, especially, and then, just doing that once is enough. If need be, they know that I'm willing to do that. And I think that is really helpful to know that it's not my way, highway. I'm the be all end all, that I can make mistakes too.
Yeah.
If I can make them and I can apologize and then be accountable.
Right. Own up to them.
Then you can as well. And then we can, kind of grow from there.
We'll grow together. Well, you didn't leave it at that. You didn't leave it as never back down from a challenge, like close the door, goodbye. You said like, I'll support you in that. I'll support you however I have to.
That was the big factor, I think.
Yeah,
I said, listen, I can either be in front and pull you, or I can be behind cheering. Which do you want? And I say that to my team every year. I said, what kind of coach do you want? Do you want to be in my office all the time telling me what your academics are and how you're planning to do this? Or do you want me to support you and back you and high five you? And, and it really is a choice, because I'm not threatening it. It's not a threat. You can't lead by threat. Then you don't have any consistency.
Yeah.
And they know I have the passion to see them succeed and not take credit for it, just to stay back and watch them grow. And honestly, like, to me, I know some coaches love the connection they have when their players leave. I just love the fact that they continue to grow. They're just moving too fast to catch up to them. They're gone, they're all over the world, so that's very satisfying to know that they just needed to head in the right direction, get a little bit of support, walk out with tremendous confidence. You want to know why I coach? It's that confidence they leave with.
Yeah.
Nothing like it. Even if they're not saying, they don't have to say thank you. I don't need a parade. I need
right.
High five me and then be successful.
Go do your thing. Go kill it. Yep.
I told them I got friends. I don't need, I love you. Hey, Liz, you want to invite me to a wedding? I love it. I've been to a few. It's been great. I love hearing from you, but just go ahead.
Go kill it.
Go ahead.
Yep.
We're just coaches.
It's funny that you say that, right? And because that's what you want for them, right? You want them to feel, well, come back anytime, but like, you don't need us.
Yeah. Because you want to. My greatest now, I have so many that were coming back and volunteer coaching right now for me. They've gone to their careers. Some of them have been very successful, or looking to say, hey, I want, like, you and I had talked before this, that, having another career and coming back to coach, to me is the highest compliment, because you've considered doing other things more permanently. I miss it so much. I want back in.
Do it. Yeah.
And honestly, I like the fact that it's not me, it's the game, it's the memories, it's the lessons that they get to now mentor. And then you can imagine how rewarding it is to have, a group of coaches that they can bounce ideas off of and have favorites, and then just say, that's my mentor. That's my coach, and then, so we'll see. That's the plan. And it's moved in that direction, and hopefully, without the COVID and getting back to life, and hopefully heading in that direction, we can continue in that direction. So,
I know it. All right. So this year was obviously a little bit different, but is there like a typical time during the season that's inevitably more challenging to you as a coach or to your team? And when is it, and what do you do about it?
I can tell you that almost to the date, it's the May, maybe 10th when they leave for the summer.
Yeah.
Just hold my breath for the entire summer. And, I mean, we're quintessential Division III. They're, we're not really allowed to check on them as far as what they're doing. They're not, they can offer it up.
Yep.
But you're really relying on team culture then. I think we really sort of make sure they're aware our success is starting in February and March when they're with their strength coach in the spring and in the winter. They have to sustain that throughout the year. If they try to get in shape starting in the middle of the summer for the season, they're going to be chasing a season and chasing injuries almost every time, especially, we're getting NCAA bids for the last 4 years, or we won one, we've got 3 bids. You don't do that without huge strength of schedule. So we're playing monsters and massively strong teams right out of the chute if our culture and fitness isn't there. And honestly, the strength and coach, they can't come home with them. So this is all about environment and home.
Do it.
It's the true measure of whether they're locked in or not, or, so it is challenging. And it's very challenging. I think, it's one of the most difficult challenges of Division III is when you're not coaching and your time is off. I think it's very valuable to have that. I'm kind of a Division III guy.
Yep.
I get it.
Yep.
But it is also, very challenging to sit back and trust, So, I have the same thing. We're studying abroad. I had 9 juniors overseas when the pandemic hit last year.
Oh my goodness.
So I was, I'm the mother hen sitting home going, oh my gosh, come home. But, you just have to trust they're going to be okay. These are, they're college grown-up kids and they'll be fine. So, but yeah, they're challenging. Those are the challenging times.
Do you have a strategy on how you deal with that?
No.
you sit there biting your.
Honestly, I do. I literally sit. I mean, honestly, I put so much energy into recruiting and getting other new players, and I just never stop that process. People say, what time of year do you recruit? The answer is yes. What year are you recruiting? The answer is yes. Where in the country? Yes. So I'll put my energy into continually helping to build teammates for them. Yeah. If I can do that, I don't know what, because I would just be sitting around worrying about them or connecting with them, which is not fair to them. Have a life.
Yeah, go again.
I tell you what I've been fascinated with. We do 2 hours we ask for 2 hours every day. And they're getting 3 and 4 hours of a workout in 2 hours. And we're succeeding in 2 hours. I am shocked I don't know how we're competing at a national level when we're not putting as much time in as others, other than the fact that it's just efficient.
Well, right. If it's direct,
the energy's there, and who knows? Maybe their energy is higher because they know it's 2 hours and done, and they just get more out of it. So.
Yeah, for sure. I think a lot of that probably goes into reading your team and knowing what they need that day and knowing the intensity levels that they need.
Absolutely, yeah.
But that's awesome that you can do that.
We have to reinvent ourselves every year too. Like every year is a little different. You have really good leaders some years that you could just sit back and let them and give them more responsibility and and other times where you just have to step in. Other years they're more fit. They have more accountability than certain years where they kind of need that nudge and that little bit. And just knowing that it's just never a simple formula.
I like to think like teams are like snowflakes, right? Like every team is different. Every day with a team is a snow, because you don't know what your team's going to come in, if they had a great day, or if they didn't, or who broke up with who, or whatever's going on. And you almost wish, and that's the fun of it, right? That's like.
So yeah, I'm gonna I'll just bring them in and say, okay, so I'm gonna give you 2 minutes to talk it out and figure out what's going on, and then let me know what's happening here, and then where do you want to go from here? And they know what that means. That means we better fix this. We better fix this fast. If they don't, then, so getting that feedback and then having them say, okay, you know what, coach, we had a lot going on today, but we're good. We're going to take care of this. We're done. Like, don't worry about us. Okay, fine. Boom. And then
Great.
they do it.
Yeah.
That's very satisfying. If not, they need a nudge. They need to get moving. That's fine. Every team does here and there.
Yeah.
But asking the question really does help.
Yes. Yeah. And finding that out sooner rather than.
Give them a chance to fix it. I don't know why coaches don't do that more.
Yeah.
It's not working. I'm not going to, I'm not going to be overly demanding here. Just, are you happy with this is another question. Are you happy with the speed of play? Are you happy with what we're accomplishing today?
Yep.
Invariably, they say no. They know the deal.
Mhm.
So why do I have to treat them like they're, that they don't? So.
Yeah, it's true. It's very true. You kind of alluded to this before, but if you could go back and give yourself a piece of advice in your first year as a coach, what would you tell yourself?
Yeah, I coach by instinct, and it's been very risky at times. I mean, there are stories and risks that I've taken that have been fortunate enough to propel my program. I refuse to accept, when I say mediocrity, I don't mean mediocrity results. I mean mediocrity effort. There's always a reason why that there's mediocrity. Sometimes it's a fear of failure, fear of success, fear, whatever. Sometimes it's just arrogance, whatever it is, but I'm just not afraid to go after it, if you will. And I think initially I wouldn't have done that. I would have, been very cautious about taking those chances on my instincts. Now, I don't mean instinct. Sometimes you have the instinct that you just want to scream, and just get it out of your system. That's not what I mean. I'm just talking about that gut feeling that you have that something's wrong. I start to look for it, and then all of a sudden there it is. And I go and say, and then all of a sudden, I'm so glad I asked. You just go with your gut. There's just been amazing situations. And I've also had teams that I couldn't fix. And my first year team was unfixable. There was so much drama when I got there. I spent a year fixing it. You don't even want to know. It was just the worst year, and they just would rather have drama than play.
Yeah.
I fired the whole team.
What do you mean?
Well, I gave them all a sheet of paper, and it says drama plus apathy equals you're fired. It was the summer, and I said it was the last meeting. I said I have 8 players coming in next year. I'll compete with 8. And I gave them a 40-minute speech on all the things I did to try to get them to care, and they just didn't care. I put a lot of time into this. Is not something you can do after a month. This was an irreparable, drama team. And I said, enjoy your summer. You're off the program. 2 weeks later, I gave them an email and said, if you want back into the program, you're going to have to answer these 5 questions. One was, or do these 5 things. One was write a letter of apology to your team. Write a letter of apology to me. I didn't care about getting an apology. I wanted to know who wanted to play.
Yeah.
Couldn't figure it out with the drama that was so in depth and so entangled. I had no choice. It was coaching suicide. I thought I was going to be fired. You let the whole team. And my AD said, this is not your players. So good luck. You're going to take this one shot.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
But I was so desperate to get rid of the drama. And sure enough, I had half the kids come back, and they were the right kids, and everybody was happy and moved forward. And to this day, I can't tell you where it all came from, but I'm crazy like that. I just refuse to have an environment where people don't want to be there and they'd rather be doing something else. So I know it's a pretty extreme story.
That's bold. That's
I know, again, it's one of those where I needed the job. I needed this. This is my career. But, one thing is, again, at that point I was old enough, I think experienced enough to trust my instincts. And I literally talked to my boss. I said, what I'm about to do is coaching suicide. Here's why I'm doing it. And then, she said, okay, 4 years in, and these are all my players, then I can't do that. These are players that they had been missing a coach for quite a while. There was a lot of drama from even one of the assistant coaches and all kinds of stuff. So it's too entangled to talk about. But the bottom line here is if you don't know where all the problems are, and sometimes you separate and make them work at it to try to show that they care. And guess what? I took a chance. I knew it. People that cared did the work. They didn't care about the drama, and they just wanted to do the work. And it just filtered out those that just didn't want to do it. Maybe there were more that would have played, but they didn't have the energy to put that into. And I guess it's It's kind of like that movie Miracle when you had him fill out 300 pages of questions, right? I want the guy that doesn't want to fill out the questionnaire, but to do the work shows you something. And it was intense, but I think more importantly, it's just a true lesson of, going with your complete gut instinct. And I had a sleepless nights all summer wondering if I was going to have a team. I love the 8 players.
Yeah.
I'll never forget the walking into that first meeting from the summer and hearing, I call it the cackling geese, like, bah, 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 meaning they were happy and they were laughing. And I was like, the drama's gone. Oh my gosh. Like we can, and they don't know all this. I have a coach that still to this day, coaches as she's moved on and coached and been very successful. She was part of that program. They don't know how hard that was for me. They thought, okay, he's just crazy, but I think going with your instinct and, hopefully all goes well.
Yeah. Well, I think, and that teases out your why. Right. And one thing, and I had a conversation, my brother-in-law is in higher education, and my first year of coaching, he said, do you know why your players are coming to practice? I said, well, to play basketball, right? Basketball at the time. He was like, no, like maybe some of them don't want to go home after school, right? Maybe some of them it was you gotta play a sport or get a job, right? And so that they would rather play the sport. Maybe it's because you don't know until you find out, right? And finding out their why. And it sounds like to you, right? You had some players who didn't know their why, or who were unclear about their why, or their why was not a reason that aligned with what you were trying to build. And that dramatic step you took helped filter in the right kids who were there who had a similar why.
Yeah, and if I was going to play judge and jury, it would have taken me 5 years to figure it out, and just so much drama. That's not our job. We're not, and I'm sure it was unfair to some that really would have liked to play, but if it's college soccer and any soccer actually, but college soccer and especially Division III, you're not being paid to play. It's hard enough.
You're here, yeah.
Grind. And I do this now. I promise when someone comes from the West Coast or the parents are committed to sending their daughter across the country to play, I'm like, you're not going to be in a drama environment. They're going to have an environment that will be up to them what they get out of it.
Yep.
But they're not going to have to worry about team drama. We have it. It happens every once in a while. We just spun it quickly. Then we give it, we let it go, and then just move on. Just move on. Yeah. And my passion, and they see how crazy I am about it, and that it sort of filters it. They're like, yeah, you don't want to get coach involved. Fix this thing quickly. But, because they know I'm just so passionate about making sure that nobody's coming here for drama. They're coming here to succeed. They're coming here to perform. Yeah. And that just keeps that compass going north towards success, and not letting those distractions of succeeding get in the way. Yeah. And, it's a challenge every year for every coach. You just have good years, you have bad years, and we all are challenged with certain years where you have to navigate that. It feels like you have to navigate it every day. Mm-hmm. But that's what coaching is. It's a dynamic world. It's certainly not a linear progression. It's right. Yeah. It's waves in the ocean. Yeah, absolutely. And no matter, even though I think if you look at my 18-year career, you can see it's progressing, but it doesn't feel that way. It feels like it's the same amount of work every day. And, because we all have these high aspirations. Yeah. Well, and then it helps when you zoom out of it too, right? Especially in season, you're so micro, you're so up close to it that until you can look back, right, and connect some of the dots, none of it makes sense until you realize like, oh, it all made sense. I mean, I'm sure I coach the same almost every year in some way, but I try to reinvent myself every year. I think that's my commitment to the players of saying, I've been doing this a long time. If I'm still the coach that I was when I started, I've lost this team. You're doing it wrong. Right. Right. And, I'm a guy that's been around a lot of years. What's going to keep me significant in staying ahead of the game is just that, is working at reinventing who I am, what we're doing, how I'm responding. And ultimately, if it becomes where it's a co-op between me and players and growing this, then we're getting the kind of players to come into that want that environment. And I'm very lucky to have things to offer them in that regard, opportunities to travel, for instance, opportunities to do things. Now they have to be the responsible type that want to, we call it do it all, or I say get 6 years of experience in 4. And, we're attracting that player, not away from Division I, but there are some Division I players in all good teams in Division III that just choose this environment. And that's another challenge, is just educating people on what Division III can be. It's not just a level. It's a choice in many cases. In some cases, it's a definite level. I get it. I'm not gonna put my head in the sand on that, but it doesn't have to be. And there's a lot of players that want a different type of experience, and they want to accomplish more than just soccer. And what I've been very excited about, and took a big risk on this too, is trusting the young women in my program to say, I'm going to give you all these other opportunities and not get in your way. Can soccer be number one also? Can everything be number one? Can you make that such a priority where we can beat the number one team in the country in our conference? And if we're good, we're playing them twice a year, and you got no choice. You have to. So how are we doing that? Still traveling the world and doing that. So it's just been thrilling to watch them excel in that environment instead of trying to be like everybody else. Just be who we are and embrace who we are and perform at our highest. And they've just blown me away with what they can do. So
that's cool. Right, I like that. 6 years of experience in 4 years. Right, but that
I need a couple of those isms when I'm talking to recruits, because it has to be a value. And if it's not, because obviously it's more expensive to be in a private school than a state school, and some other things. There's obviously getting a scholarship, but we've had kids turn down scholarships to have the experience they have because they want to walk away after 4 years with more, as far as what they've accomplished from a quantity standpoint, necessarily just, and again, I have a lot of good players that love Division I, had a great 4-year experience and got a lot out of it. So I'm not comparing that. I'm just saying it's different.
It is. Yeah, it totally is.
Educating people that there is a chance to do that is my biggest challenge, I guess.
I try to encourage every kid I get who could potentially play at any level, at the next level. Like, you get 8 years to play. Most, right? I've never had a kid who's gone pro yet. Maybe that'll change someday. But you get 8 years, and then you graduate and you turn 22, and you're paying $100 to play in some beer league, where you're playing like that's it. So
you can say that at high school. I can't say that in college because that's too close of a reality to them.
Yes, right. Exactly.
They're too close to that last 4 years, last 2 years.
But I try to say, use it. Really, if you have the opportunity and you want to, you'll never get another chance to travel with your best friends, to spend hours on the road with your meals being paid for, right? Just hanging out in a hotel, playing charades, the night after a game. You'll never have the opportunity again. And that's, I'm sure it happens at all levels, but that was what, and I started at a Division II college in New Hampshire, where I walked onto the team, and then I transferred to D3. And I'm glad I got both experiences. I loved both of my teams, but it was a very different type of player who I was teammates with at Division II, because I showed up to practice because I loved it and I wanted to be there, and it was very different for them because they had to.
Yes.
And I would go to practice at Catholic at Division III, and all of us wanted to be there. Yeah. It was just a very different experience.
I hear that a lot from my club kids that have gone through, and it's a good thing for me to hear it. It's not something you can relate. It's the other thing about whether it's high school or college. You can tell them all you want until they experience it for themselves. They don't always learn from that. Unfortunately, it does take some hard times, and they do get to appreciate that. And when I say the most unfortunate thing is to segue into the COVID and the pandemic right now, is this reality has finally hit everybody.
Yep.
We aren't playing. High school kids have been able to play. Many of the colleges have not. Yep. Some haven't even had a chance to train, and it's just been a really hard reality of wow. So I think everybody at least has unfortunately had a chance to feel that. So hopefully there's just more of an appreciation of, So the biggest thing that hurts my team is they just miss each other. They just want to spend time together, other than, our Zoom calls.
Yeah.
So, which I try to keep at a minimum because they're all zoomed out, So.
I know. Our kids are the same way. They don't, they'd rather stand outside in 30 degrees and like wave to each other than be in front of their computers.
Yes.
Yep. Yeah. Well, tell me a little bit more. I have two more questions for you, really. And you kind of just alluded to it, right? Of like, what helps a player be successful in your program in particular, or you feel like at the college level?
Yeah, it has to be a combination. I think that's why I'm pretty lucky to have what we have, which is just offering opportunities for them. But if they, so I only have that to speak to. But if they don't have the passion to accomplish things or to do more, or if they're recluse and they want to sit inside their residence hall all the time and just be by themselves, and that's fine, and just do esports. There's nothing wrong with that. Just you're not going to be happy on our campus. So to be successful with us is almost like it has to be half player, half program, and the university has to fit. And this just brings it back to fit. There's so many successful programs out there that have, strong cultures of success, and they might be very specific, whether it's religion or whether it's academics, or it doesn't always have to be just soccer, but they based it around soccer as well. And finding that fits you is the critical factor to success.
Yep.
And I think you've alluded to that. If not, you might have alluded to one of your other shows that I picked up on today. But, environment that you can thrive in is a constant thing that we talk about. If we don't have the environment they can thrive in, it doesn't matter what I do as a coach. If they're trying to study and there's parties going on in the hallway and everybody's screaming, yelling, and hollering, and they're uncomfortable, they're not going to succeed. They're going to have to go somewhere to succeed. I don't care about soccer.
Right.
We talk culture. We talk so much about that fit. And I think we talk about getting out of their way to succeed. So I think at certain levels, I don't know if this is all the way through high school. I do know that recruiting, I get freshmen from high school that reach out and they seem to have their life together. They already know what they want. There's some.
Yeah, right at 13 years old.
Yeah, there's always some very progressive kids out there. They really know what they want. So, why would you put brakes on for them? For me, it's how do we get out of their way and give them what they need to succeed?
Right, boost them.
Honestly, the more we work on that, and obviously we have to guide them with soccer and bringing them things that they need to work on in their game. That's also very challenging because after the age of 13 or 14, you don't want to be told you're doing something wrong anymore. It's really hard to hear wrong, no. It's just people don't want to relearn the game, but oddly enough, the ones that do continue to grow. So having that, thirst or passion to get better.
Yep.
I'll take that with a, two-dimensional player over relaxed, I'll just say that, three-dimensional player that may not have passion.
Yeah. And I think a big part of that, you kind of mentioned it, is like knowing yourself, right? Am I the type of kid, can I study and will it not bother me if I'm in a room full of parties? Or or am I going to be the partier, right? Am I going to be disturbing the kid? Like who am I going to be? And that can be a lot to ask of a 17-year-old.
Well, I'm going to tell you something. I had a 20-year head coach and I were really good friends, and we were at a showcase and we were watching a really good team. I'll never forget what he said to me. He said, "Man, I'll take any one of these kids in my office, and an hour later they're coming to my school." And I said, "Really?" I said, "How's that?" He said, "Well, I'm going to tell them all the things they're going to, all the things are great about our program." He said, "Don't worry, I've been doing this for 20 years. I said, "Well, that's funny because usually when I have these kids in my office, I'm telling them why they shouldn't come." And he's like, "What?" "I'm telling them how hard it is. I'm going to tell them, like, you're going to be doing this, you're going to be doing that. It's going to be, you have to get up early, it's going to be the most challenging 4 years of your life because you're going to have to, you have these really hard classes on high sciences. You're going to be traveling the world. And by the way, soccer, and I'm looking for the look in their eyes. And they're going to do one of two things. They're going to look with fear, like, get me out of this office.
Right. Or,
you know what I'm going to say. They're going to go, huh, really? I could do all that? Yeah. So I laughed. He laughed at me and we kind of joked about it. But I'm not looking to attract somebody. I'm looking to challenge somebody.
Yeah.
And when you say to a recruit, do you want to just have easy success, or do you want to be challenged? I'll tell you right now, they're going to say challenged.
Yeah.
Most of them want to be challenged. The ones that say I want easy success, thanks. Just you're not going to be happy, in our program.
Yeah. No, that's really insightful, right? Of like, you got to know, we talked about it before, right? You got to know what you don't want in order to know and help
That's a
guide you.
very valuable thing. And as I said, we talked about lessons from losing and knowing what you don't want, and being able to face, the difficult losses in your life. The reason people don't want to learn a new skill is they don't want to face the fear of devastating failure.
Yeah.
And we have that in our program. It happens. We have a challenge where you have to kick a ball over crossbar with your non-dominant foot 2 out of 3 times sometimes, and they just can't do it. But you have to relearn like you're 6 years old, and nobody wants to do. But I tell you what, they do it, and when they do, the look on their face that they become 3-dimensional. Because I'm going to tell them, listen, you may be on the left side of the field. You got to get a ball over an outside back, and you can't hit that ball, and the game depends on it. And then suddenly they go, okay, all right, I'll take care of it.
I'll do it, right? Yeah, I'll do it.
But you also have to encourage the failure. Like, some failure is good failure, and some it's okay. You're way off. Let's get you restarted. It's levels of failure.
Yeah, definitely. Awesome, Coach. I love it. I have 2 final questions for you. Before I ask them, I just want to just acknowledge you for a moment here and thank you for spending the last hour and change with me, enlightening me and telling your story and giving me your insight, because it's really helpful to learn from people like you who've been in it and who have such a strong identity with a program, and to learn that, yeah, a lot of it's the people that you bring in. So I just want to acknowledge you for all of the lives that you've changed and the opportunities that you've brought, because it's not easy to coach kids and then tell them like, yeah, go abroad, right? Or go have these life experiences and make soccer a priority. But you seem to have struck the right balance there. And I admire that. And I just really appreciate it.
Well, thank you, Kelly. This is a really good format, and it's been nice to express it, and really just, because the longer I coach, the more I trust the players that are around me, and the relationships are just that much better. I've been so fortunate to have 2 things: a program and department that's grown in size and in quality and things like that, and then the time to evolve and reinvent myself. If I'd been in 5 different positions, I may not be able to have had these lessons, so to speak, and then be able to talk as progressively as I've been able to talk about relationships when, I'm 2 and out. So it's a very challenging career for so many. But again, I call it the grind. If you're willing to go through the grind, it's just as a rewarding and noble a career as any, whether it's teaching and mentoring. I think kids, it's just, we're all very lucky to be able to do that.
Yeah, totally. All right, final 2 questions. One of them is, could you give me, or us rather, like a resource, a book, a podcast, a video, a movie, something that you would recommend to other coaches to improve, either soccer specific or coaching in general? What do you got?
Well, I break rules. That's always been my motto. I don't look down normal sources for answers. I have general soccer knowledge. I don't need further general soccer knowledge. I like when somebody does something extreme and gets success. I look at whether it's another sport. I used to coach. I learned more coaching with a baseball team 25 years ago, running down and watching them as a very high level baseball team. How are they in this really like remote small area of South Jersey winning national championships? What are they doing? And it just broke all these rules in my head of like, wow. I mean, I was a really good baseball team in high school. We were 21-1, and this team would have beat us like 8-0. So like, I'm willing to go further to learn what I don't know. I love watching programs that are just massively successful. And, we joke about Messiah and number 1 in the country. I've learned more from him as a coach, watching that program and learning from what they do. And they've made us better, challenging us. So I also think that coaches come out early and try to over challenge their team when they're not ready. You're taking the heart out of your team before they're ready to compete at that level. Competition is a process. It's a process that is developed. It's not hey, we're going to take up anybody at all costs. If you do, good for you, but it's it's a really hard thing for your team to get through.
Yeah.
But I will tell you that one of the books and resources that I found most interesting for me, maybe it takes me back to my training days, but the Talent Code.
Coyle, right? Dan Coyle?
Yeah. So I've sort of been, again, one of those things where I've been kind of practicing some of those, like, how is it that I've learned? I've never been the superstar athlete, but I made every team I tried for, and I was, ended up being kind of a captain type. So
yeah,
it's been a growth process for me along the way. I played so many different sports, and I loved learning. But why do some people hate it? Why are some people attracted to the learning process? And it's what I said before. Some people they don't want the failure. Yeah. And when you look at what practicing builds myelin is, an actual, brain process that makes you better at sports. It's, what is it? Ignition, master coaching, deep practice equals talent. You're not born with talent.
Yep.
In many cases. Why are certain small islands off the coast of
pockets of people? Yeah.
Pockets, right? Or have these phenomenal soccer stars, or I did this with musicians. I did this with other areas, and they're saying they're not necessarily born with that talent, that they have these principles that they're willing to go through.
Yep.
And I think failure of learning, as I remember reading one passage in there about a piano player that was 12 years old, that she wasn't appreciably better every time she played. She was horrible for a month, and she didn't get better. She got worse, but she just didn't care. She just kept doing it.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden it clicked.
Yep.
And I think that she obviously didn't, personalize failure.
Right.
And I think that's probably one of the gifts I think that athletes have, is they tend to not personalize failure as much, which helps in the real world. When you do get out there and you do grind it out and you are reaching failure, you learn from your failures. It's not just a line that you say. I always try to think of failure as fail with a purpose.
Yeah.
Every loss, learn from it, everything. And never walked away with this phenomenal win, turned around and said, we have to fix so many things. So, we learn from our failure. Anyway, so I would say the Talent Code is something that just kind of wakes up your process of, when you have a kid that's struggling, don't give up on them. If they're not willing to give up, use the energy they have. And you could have a phenomenal story of somebody, building in the program. I never look at a player in my program and think they're never going to make it. Yeah. I tell recruits the same thing. I said, you're going to maybe struggle in our program. And if you want to climb Mount Everest, here's what Everest looks like.
Right.
And usually they run away because it's a lot.
Here's the tools, right? And I'll be cheering you down from the bottom, cheering you up from the bottom, but
yeah, you're going to do the extra hour of work every day on top of the strength and conditions, on top of everything else. I said, and you may not get there, but you'll be supported. You'll get information. And if you're willing to do the work, we'll watch and see how far you go. Yeah. And I've been very fortunate. I had a small little outside back come to me as a freshman, and she ended up with being an All-American striker. Jeez. And just asked the question. She scored a goal in a game. She's 5'0". She slammed a header on a corner kick. And I said, Hey, Kim, you ever thought about being a striker? She goes, I don't know how to play striker. I said, well, bring your notebook in. And sure enough, every summer I gave her a list of things to do. She knocked it out with her brother, and he was a soccer player. And she, first team all conference, first team all region. Next thing you know, she's an All-American as a senior. She did the work.
Yeah. And
I didn't give her 50 things. I gave her like 5 each, so they're out there.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. I love it. Yeah. I'm going to have to, I had somebody else had suggested the Talent Code, and I had read it, but I got to go back and revisit it. Cause it's so simple. Right. And it really gives you like no excuses, like you're talking about.
It does. And I look for books like that just sort of make me better at what I'm looking for. I don't necessarily dive into any one book and say, this is my Bible, if you will. I mean, it's a bad reference to say Bible, but you know what I'm saying? This is not how I'm going to coach. I don't want to learn how to coach. I want somebody to teach me some things I don't know, and give me some ideas that I hadn't thought of for me. And I think that's how I get the value out of whatever book I'm reading and whatever, learning. I mean, I'll watch a movie and get something out of it if it's a competitive lesson and learned.
Yep.
And I'll try to pull out what I might have learned from the competition.
Yeah, I love it. Awesome. Coach. And just my final question is, if people want to find you or get in touch with you or learn more about, the Arcadia women's soccer program, what's the best way for them to do that?
Yeah, I mean, simple way is right through the website. I mean, I am through Arcadia, but my email is brownelr. It's an odd email. It's brownelr@arcadia.edu. Yeah, I look forward to hearing from people, and exchanging ideas is always a positive thing. And just understand that my environment where I am now is completely unique to what your environment is as a high school coach, and what your environment is.
Yeah.
It's not better, it's not worse, whether it's Division I, whether it's Division III, whether it's a small program, big program, successful, we're just getting started. We're all in this together. It's a challenge at every level. And then hopefully people are picking up principles, so that what I tell the new coaches coming to Arcadia, you're going to do to your program what I did in 18 years, you're going to do it in 4. So it's going to be every bit as painful, but you got to go through the motions.
Yeah.
The grind is still the grind.
It is. I love it. Yeah. Any final thoughts that you would want to leave? That's a good one, but anything else you want to add?
No, I think this has been really, it's been fun talking to you, Kelly. I think you and I could talk for hours on this.
I'm sure I'll call you back. Sure of that.
I will just leave one thing that I did with one of my teams one year, and it really changed how they, halfway through a really hard season, instead of asking, I asked them what about their teammates, each teammate has inspired them, and then I asked the real hard question, have you done anything today to inspire your teammates today? And I made them answer to themselves without having to bring it out. And every day I started asking that question, what have you done today to inspire your teammates? First, we acknowledge what are some of the things that they've been inspired by, the hard work, the slide tackle that saved the game, the pass that, or the defensive cover that didn't even get involved, but the fact that they were there made the keeper relax a little more, knowing that we had this game, whatever inspired. And it started to grow and grow and grow. And at the end of the year, I got a nice plaque with the team, each one of them holding up a letter, saying we inspire each other every day. Awesome. And I just think as coaches, we don't ask enough of every day, what have you done to inspire those around you? And, if we all did that, and all our players did that, and we work to do that, you're doing that with these podcasts, you're inspiring people. Like, what are we doing to help this profession, if you will? Because it's a grueling profession. Very few careers have, there's no pensions in many cases. Some do, some don't. There's no contracts. I mean, I've been in 18 years. It is what it is, right? So it's basically, we're on cliffs without a safety net here. Like, what can we do to help each other? We should all be helping each other and growing and helping each other's programs and improving the experience for the athletes around us. That's the only way we're ever going to get better. Yeah.
Gosh, I love that. And I think it brings such an awareness too, when you challenge them every day. What did you do today? Right. And it makes people start looking for those moments, or looking for an opportunity to deliver that moment of like, there's a teammate on the ground. Let me be the first one to go help her up. Right. Maybe that'll be mentioned. Right. And you don't do it for that reason. Right. But it's so important to recognize those moments.
I think the confidence comes when you do something that you're proud of yourself internally every day. I think when, we look at young grownups, if you will, like I said, through college or high school, that are so many times insecure and fear and doubts and who am I and why are, am I the good person, bad person, am I a good player? Yep. All those doubts can go away with one thing, and that's what have you done to inspire your teammates? It's not just being nice to them. That's not the answer to this. If it's not something that you truly believe inspired them or worked hard, did you run the extra lap? Did you tell your team, I know you're tired, girls, let's do this, or guys, let's do this. I mean, whatever it can be, and even as coaches, I think if we all ask that of ourselves, did we just run a typical practice today? Oh, I'm tired. Let me just run a couple of rondos and let's get out of here. Have you inspired your team to get better every day? So It's why I coach. It is right there. I mean, I need to feel like I try to do something every day on that regard. That's what gets me up in the morning.
Yeah. Oh, I love it. What a going out with a bang, coach.
Thanks.
That's beautiful.
Thank you, Kelly.
Yeah, my goodness. Here we'll pause the